The fall and rise of Luton Town. Luton Town are standing on the brink of a historic achievement if they can defy the odds and reach the Premier League. No football team has ever won promotion from the 5th tier of English football, or the National League as it's currently known, and then gone on to reach the Premier League, since promotion from the National League to the Football League was introduced, rather than teams simply being elected from the non-league game in 1987. Welcome back to another episode of Football Society. Subscribe, like the video and comment autograph to stand the chance to win a rare football card collectible. The giveaway will take place once we reach 5,000 subscribers. The English footballing landscape is about as rocky, harsh and uneven as Elephant Island, with even more highs and lows. Even with this barbarous and quite often brainless climate, one league reigns supreme. The Championship is a division in which all but 5 teams spend more than their entire turnover on wages alone. That is to say nothing of transfer fees, infrastructure projects, and every other form of expenditure. It is a plainly unsustainable set of circumstances which has been created by teams throwing the kitchen sink at promotion with dreams of reaching the promised land of the Premier League and all of the riches that come with it. During their heyday, which came during the late 1950s, Luton finished 8th in First Division, above the likes of Manchester United, Chelsea and Arsenal, and they reached the final of the FA Cup in 1959, where they lost 2-1 to Nottingham Forest in front of 100,000 spectators. Within 6 years of that famous Wembley defeat, Luton suffered 3 relegations and found themselves in the basement division of England's Football League pyramid, competing with the likes of Aldershot and Southport rather than finishing above Manchester United. And in some respects, that kind of collapse has always been in Luton Town's DNA, a team of booms and busts, who often overachieve, given that they have never had the biggest stadium or the biggest budget, but always seem to be just a couple of steps away from catastrophe. After the club was relegated from the First Division in 1992, just before the creation of the Premier League, it took them less than a decade to drop all the way down to the Football League's bottom division once again. Within 4 years of that, they were back in the Championship, and then from 2006 to 7 to 2008 to 9, Luton suffered the fastest possible descent through the Football League, enduring 3 successive relegation campaigns. The last of those 3 relegations in 2009, which saw Luton lose their league status, bringing an end to an 89-year reign for the Hatters within the Football League, hit by far the hardest of the lot, and left the club with a bitter taste in the mouth. The Hatters actually amassed 56 points in the 2008 to 2009 season, which would have been enough to give them a 15th place finish in League 2, were it not for a 30-point deduction. That is the heaviest points deduction ever imposed upon a Football League team in England. Initially, Luton were docked 10 points during pre-season and were fined £50,000 as the result of an FA investigation which found that they were guilty of 15 misconduct charges. That was a hefty blow in and of itself to a club that was already in disarray, but then the Football League piled on the misery, telling Luton's new supporter-backed consortium owners that they would only be granted permission to compete in the upcoming campaign if they accepted a further 20-point deduction for leaving administration without agreeing to a CVA with their creditors. Luton appealed against the decision, but their appeal was thrown out, and before a ball was kicked, their fate was all but sealed. 13 years later, there's still a banner that can be seen at Kenilworth Road on a Saturday afternoon, which reads, "Luton Town, established 1885. Betrayed by the FA, 2008. Luton fans felt as though an example was made of them, but instead of wallowing in despair and letting that sense of injustice eat away at them, they harnessed those grievances, channeling that sentiment to create a siege mentality and a really close bond between everyone at the club, which has galvanised and spurred them on ever since. That spirit was present even during the 2008 to 2009 season, when Luton's relegation was made inevitable by their points deduction, as manager and club legend Mick Harford took his team to the new Wembley Stadium in April 2009, where they came from behind to beat Scunthorpe United 3-2 in the final of the Football League trophy. Of the 55,000 fans at Wembley that afternoon, Roughly 40,000 of them were supporting Luton, and they used the venue and occasion to stage a massive protest against the FA and the Football League. In lifting the trophy, Luton became the first team to win the Football League trophy and be relegated from the Football League during the same season, and were therefore unable to defend their title the following season. The club did request that they be allowed to defend their crown in the National League, but again, the Football League refused. Whilst Hartford had been able to harbour an unbreakable team spirit that ran beyond the first team dressing room and right throughout the club, and Luton had been taken over by the fan-backed Luton Town Football Club 2020 consortium in January 2008, with significant ties to the Luton Town Supporters Trust, their predicament was still an extremely difficult one. Coming off the back of 6 years of chaos that began with John Gurney's 2003 takeover of the club, Luton had basically sold anyone who earned anything or was worth anything of note over the last 2 or 3 years. The conference, as it was then, or the National League now, may be seen as rock bottom for previously competitive Football League teams, but time and time again we just see what a tough league it is to get out of. In the 2009-10 season alone, Luton would have to compete with former Football League teams like Oxford United, Wrexham and Mansfield Town, along with newly promoted AFC Wimbledon, FC Wimbledon's Phoenix Club. So Luton knew that it would be tough, and so it proved. Following relegation, 10 players departed on free transfers, meanwhile 19 came in, all but one of them either on a free or on a loan deal. A run of 3 defeats in the space of 5 games in September, given the expectations Luton put on themselves, saw Mick Harford lose his job. What makes the National League, or the Conference, such a difficult division to get out of is the fact that there aren't just lots of very professional and competitive clubs vying for promotion. There are only 2 promotion places available to the 24 clubs. Only the title winners are guaranteed promotion, with the other promotion place decided via the playoffs. Luton finished as conference runners-up during their debut campaign, but lost 2-0 to York City in the playoff semi-finals. This would become a bit of a recurring theme for the Hatters, who finished in the playoffs but ultimately could not win the playoffs in each of their first 3 seasons in the conference. In the 2010-11 season, it was AFC Wimbledon who got the better of them in the final on penalties, and a year later, unbelievably, it was York City once again who crushed Luton's dreams at Wembley Stadium in front of 40,000 fans. As with the Football League Trophy final, it should be said around 30,000 of those fans were supporting the team in orange, but this time they would leave Wembley Way feeling disappointed. Following 3 failed playoff campaigns, the 2012-2013 campaign was a concerning one for Luton as they slipped to 7th, finishing 13 points off the playoffs. Manager Paul Buckle was sacked, and Dagenham and Redbridge boss John Still left the League Two side to drop into the conference with Luton. Still was, at the time of his departure, the longest serving manager in the Football League, but following 9 years at the club, he felt undermined when the Dagenham board sold striker 𝐦𝐤𝐤𝐞 to Peterborough United without his permission. The John Still revolution worked, and striker Andre Gray scored 30 goals as Luton avoided their nemesis, the playoffs, and instead romped to the title, amassing an enormous 101 points, almost 20 clear of league runners-up Cambridge United. It brought an end to a 5-year stay in non-league football, and it also made John Still the first manager to have taken 3 different teams out of the non-league game, and he described it as the most remarkable season ever. Luton were dealt a pretty major blow following promotion when striker Andre Gray departed for Brentford. For Still, it was an all too familiar tale of losing his star centre forward, but it was, in fact, evidence that the Luton model was working. Club's owners, Luton Town Football Club 2020 Limited, were adamant that Luton would never again fall into the kind of trouble that led to their demise during the 2000s. That meant a sharp focus on models of sustainability, meaning the occasional player sale was inevitable. It also meant that strong attendances and fan buy-in was essential. When the Luton Town Football Club 2020 Limited consortium acquired Luton in January 2008, they did so with the blessing of the Luton Luton Town Supporters Trust, who also own 50,000 shares in the club. In addition to their ownership stake, the Supporters Trust holds a veto over any major changes to the club's identity. Key to Luton's strategy moving forward would be to bring on board as many local people as possible and to feel a real sense of pride and community about their football club. Luton is a town which has attracted plenty of unwanted media attention surrounding extremists of all stripes. The radical Islamist group Islam for UK, led by the later jailed hate preacher 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐿, had active cells in Luton and staged a number of controversial rallies and protests in the town. One such protest in Luton in 2009, staged against British soldiers, led to the creation of the far-right English Defence League led by Stephen Yaxley Lennon, who's better known in Britain by the alias Tommy Robinson. I don't want to get too tied up within the weeds of Luton's various strains of extremism, whether that be Islamo-fascists or just straight up old-fashioned fascists, but over the years there have been times when Luton Town has been associated with more hard-right and particularly anti-Muslim views, such as those espoused by the EDL. Tommy Robinson was a member of Luton's hooligan firm known as the MIGs, which stands for Men in Gear, and even authored 2 books about his experiences with the group, alongside such noted titles as Enemy of the State and Muhammad's Quran, Why Muslims Kill for Islam. During their first season back in the Football League, despite losing Andre Gray to Brentford and attempting to replace him from within, Luton enjoyed a terrific first half of the season. On Christmas Day, they were 3rd, 2 points off the top of the table, and even by the middle of February, they were still in the hunt for an automatic promotion place, just 1 point behind Wycombe Wanderers in 3rd. Then came a run of 7 successive defeats, which scuppered Luton's hopes of achieving back-to-back promotions to League One, and Still's men carried that form into the following campaign. In December 2015, a year on from being in an automatic promotion spot, Luton found themselves in 17th in League Two, and manager John Still, who still has the honorary freedom of the Borough of Luton, was sacked. In his place, Luton appointed Nathan Jones, who had previously been signed by Luton as a player under David Pleat in 1995, but never actually played for the club. Jones had no previous experience in first-team management other than having briefly acted as a caretaker boss at Brighton in 2014, and he was employed by the Seagulls as a first-time coach when he was approached by Luton. As soon as Jones arrived, Luton started winning games again, and they ended the season up in 11th. Over the summer, just as John Still had done, Jones put his own mark on proceedings. There was no ambiguity about Jones's ambitions. It was promotion, and his recruitment reflected that fact, as the former Brighton coach targeted experienced players with League Two promotions already on their CV. In his first summer in charge, Jones brought in Danny Hilton from Oxford United, who scored 27 goals in his debut campaign, as Luton finished 4th in League Two, 1 place off automatic promotion, before losing to Blackpool in the playoff semi-finals. Mark Cullen, who Luton had sold to Blackpool for over £200,000 the previous season, scored a hat-trick in the first leg. The following summer, Jones signed James Collins from Crawley Town. He would score 20 goals in his first season as Luton won promotion from League Two, 25 goals in his second season as Luton won the League One title, and 14 goals in his first season in the Championship. That makes things sound very simple, when in reality, of course, it wasn't. Just as Luton looked to be on course for back-to-back promotions from League Two to the Championship, Nathan Jones left the club to replace 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐞 at Stoke City. Stoke had underachieved since dropping into the Championship, with one of the best squads on paper in the division, and no doubt Jones saw it not only as a hefty pay rise, but also a chance to take them up and manage in the Premier League. Luton appointed Mick Harford, or Mr. Luton Town I suppose I should call him at this stage, as his replacement, in the hope that he could just come in, steady the ship, and keep Luton on track for promotion. He did just that, as Luton were crowned champions of League One, but the Championship would prove to be by far the toughest test yet for both Nathan Jones and Luton Town. Jones won just 3 of Stoke's last 21 games of the season, finishing 16th. And after that run was extended, to only 5 wins in 35 games at the start of the following season. He was rather unceremoniously dismissed in November 2019. Luton, meanwhile, not only decided to replicate their strategy of appointing a manager with no previous first-team managerial experience, which had worked out so well for them last time out, they also decided to replicate appointing someone named Jones as Graeme Jones, who had been out of work since losing his job as Darren Moore's assistant at West Brom, was handed the top job. However, this time it wouldn't work out. From January onwards, Luton didn't once manage to get out of the relegation zone, and they spent almost that entire period dead last. In April, Graeme Jones was finally sacked, and Nathan Jones was brought back to Kenilworth Road. Nathan replaced Graeme during the 2019 to 2022 season's unanticipated break due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and when Nathan Jones came in, Luton were down in 23rd, 6 points from safety, and with the worst goal difference in the division with only 9 games to go. It was an almighty task, but the Hatters lost just one of those last 9 games. They remained in the bottom 3 right up to the final game of the season when they beat Blackburn Rovers 3-2 thanks to 2 own goals and a penalty, climbing from 22nd to 19th and ending up 3 points clear of the drop. It was a heroic climax to a season in which Luton for so long appeared to have been doomed. Nathan Jones's failure at Stoke, in many respects, might prove to be beneficial to both him and Luton in the long run. If you speak to most Stoke City fans, they have a pretty dim view of Jones and seem baffled that he has managed to enjoy success of any kind elsewhere. He also didn't seem to ingratiate himself with many Stoke City players, some of whom have even made their dislike of him fairly public. Broadly speaking, Jones was considered to be a bit of a caricature at Stoke and a bit of a joke, but for Luton, it's almost as though, as still a fairly inexperienced manager, Jones learnt a lot and got a lot of his mistakes out of the way in the Championship elsewhere without it costing them before returning to the club. Just as important as his man management has been Luton's recruitment ever since their demise in the late 2000s, attempting to go from the non-league game to the Premier League without spending anything is a task sometimes attempted by people who play Football Manager, but rarely by clubs in real life. Luton have utilised free transfers and loan deals expertly. At the big clubs, where they have such large academies, there are always some real gems among their cast-offs every season, and Luton have found a useful habit of identifying some of the finest among them. Then you have players like 𝐥𝐤𝐬𝐬, who would have been way out of Luton's budget back when he joined Aston Villa for a reported fee of £3 million, said to be earning in excess of £10,000 a week. However, having played only 21 league games in 3 seasons at Villa Park and having struggled to make an impression there, Luton were able to sign Bree on a permanent basis. How much he cost them was never disclosed, but some sources suggest that he may even have arrived on a free, just with favourable future bonuses and sell-on fees for Villa. What unites almost all of Luton's signings is that they are players with fire in their belly and a point to prove, and if they aren't, they're unlikely to stick around for long. Luton Town are a football club who have had good times and bad times, but even during the very best of times, such as the late 80s and early 90s, you felt as though that success was built on flimsy foundations. That is no longer the case. Luton's foundations are among the strongest in Football League, and for a club whose crises appeared to be existential a little over 10 years ago, that is more important than any promotion. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video and found it interesting, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.